So the last time I made a video on Lewis Hamilton, it went down about as well as you might expect.
Unsubscribing from your channel. Low quality, biased, non-factual. Lewis is a black man in a white sport. You idiot. I haven't even watched the video. More whack content from this channel.
In fact, just from this video's title and thumbnail alone, if you scroll below this one, you could probably spend your afternoon laughing at the specially attuned people in the comments. In the meantime, they've probably hunted me down and killed me. But that's okay, I still have these few minutes to read out my own eulogy and live rent-free in those people's heads. So, what's Lewis Hamilton crying about this time? Well, the source of this video will circulate around comments made by Lewis following qualifying for the Monaco Grand Prix last weekend.
The team have worked really hard back at the factory to bring an upgrade in the last 2 races and also an upgrade this weekend, but we only had one, which George has. I anticipated it would be difficult to out-qualify George because he has the upgraded component, but once we get to qualifying, I don't understand. Like, I already know automatically that I'm going to lose 2 tenths going into qualifying.
For a bit of added context here, Mercedes had a new front wing upgrade ready for the weekend. Problem was, they only had one, and that ended up on George Russell's car because I'm assuming the Silver Arrows didn't expect Sainz to win and thus George to crikey it into one of the barriers. This situation isn't unheard of in Formula 1. In fact, it's very common. Only upgrading one car has the benefits of getting said upgrades produced earlier, and also allows you to compare the new package against its predecessor to see if the data in the team's wind tunnel matches what can be seen out on track. The answer to that question in Aston Martin's case appearing to always be no. It's no secret that Mercedes have struggled to find their feet in these new ground effect regulations. They amputated the side pods off their first car, were too proud to stick them back on for the second, and while now they've finally bit the bullet and gone in the direction of Red Bull, they're still only fast during practice sessions, which isn't very practical over an entire race weekend. The push to experiment to better understand the nuances of the W15 have further led to issues in qualifying and race day, Monaco being no different, Hamilton topping FP1, only to fall to 7th in qualifying, which is somewhat staggeringly his best Saturday performance all year. He reckons had he received the new front wing, he'd be much further up the order, and as a result spent most of the post-qualifying interviews crying about it to the media. That, as it turns out, was a particularly brain-dead play for a couple of reasons, and we'll get into the more stupid one in a bit, but first, should he really be surprised that he's not getting priority on upgrades? Hamilton capsized the F1 boat back in February when he announced pre-season that he was identifying as an Italian from 2025 onwards. That news came as a surprise to many, especially given only 6 months prior, the Briton had just inked a new contract with the Silver Arrows and spent many an interview outlining how he would end his career at Mercedes. Pledges that, with the benefit of hindsight, were clearly a complete load of horseshit. Unsurprisingly, the news took aback Mercedes as well, and many were left wondering exactly how the relationship between Hamilton and the team would fare, given they now had to complete an entire season together knowing Lewis has zero faith in his employers whatsoever. And sure enough, it hasn't taken long for those cracks to already begin to form. But with only one of the Mercedes current pair showing faith in the long-term running of the team, should it really come as much of a shock that Russell is getting the upgrades ahead of Hamilton? Yes, Lewis has won 6 World Championships, or 7 if you're still butthurt over 2021, and has won however many 100 Grand Prix well dressed in silver, but times change, and maybe it's time for Merc to start looking to the future and what's on the horizon. I think it's also worth reiterating the point I made in my last Hamilton video, and that's who has been the better of the 2 Mercedes drivers this season, because it's certainly not Lewis Hamilton. You lot had a go saying it was way too early to conclude that last time, but we're a third of the way through the year now, and George leads the qualifying and race head-to-heads 7-1 and 5-2 respectively. As a well-known Daniel Ricciardo fan, usually if I hear someone say this, I want to punch them in the face, but you're only as good as your last race. So you can quote the 2023 statistics all you like down below, it doesn't mean jack anymore. So thus far we've established that Lewis didn't get the Monaco front wing upgrade because he's running away at the end of the season, and George has been flat out better than him so far in 2024, but I said there was an even more ridiculous reason, didn't I? Well, what if I told you that Hamilton actually was offered the upgrade first, then turned it down? Following Hamilton's comments to the media, Mercedes seek to clarify the situation regarding front wing-gate. George Russell revealed that the team had planned to do a coin toss to decide which of its 2 drivers got the upgrade for Monaco, and which one would have to wait until the next round of the championship in Canada. However, Hamilton would then turn around and make the decision for himself. Hamilton told the team he didn't want the upgrade on the premise that they had no replacements. If he hit the wall or a slow-moving Logan Sargent in qualifying, the car would be in parc fermé and thus any crash damage would need to be replaced by an identical part. But since that wasn't possible, as yet again, Mercedes only had one front wing, in that situation, Hamilton would have to start the race from the back of the grid, and thus be at the mercy of Kevin Magnussen. That is a perfectly logical argument, especially considering that hitting something is far more likely in Monaco, and that overtaking around there is about as hard as Christian Horner gets as he opens his WhatsApp. So clearly, Lewis must have hit his head at some point, as he conveniently appeared to forget this, as he begs for sympathy from Natalie Pinkham. Let me clarify this again, as I shouldn't have to, but we all know what the F1 community is like. Unless something involves the Honey Badger, I'm a neutral fan. There's probably a tiny bit of British bias in there if you want to look hard enough, but I don't think I've ever called myself a Hamilton fan. I respect the guy and everything he's overcome and achieved, don't get me wrong, but if you want to be a whiny bitch to the media over something you had full control of to begin with, expect people to call you out on it. How's that comment section looking, by the way? Enough salt yet? I get that emotions can run high after qualifying and people end up saying things that they probably shouldn't, but Lewis has been around long enough now to know that this was about as good of an idea as it was to put 9/11 in the new Call of Duty game. At the end of the day, I think this is just the start of an increasingly fractious relationship between Hamilton and Mercedes. The car isn't where anyone wants it to be, and while I'm sure #blessed here wants to have a heroic swan song with the team that's brought him so much success, it's looking increasingly likely that that isn't going to happen. We already know that Lewis is being left out of team meetings to avoid him taking any company secrets with him to the Scuderia. Exactly what Mercedes secrets would be useful to them right now is anyone's guess, but definitely as the team's focus shifts more to 2025 in the second half of this season, I worry those cracks might just risk growing only larger. In that scenario, we could see things completely break down before the end of the year, and even as a neutral fan in all this, I don't think that would be as entertaining to watch as it sounds. The odd Max Verstappen supporter might be able to get high off of it, but I do just think it would be a really sad way to end such a successful and long-term partnership, even if at the end of all of this, it was entirely due to their own making. Let me know what you think of this whole situation down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave it a like and get subscribed for plenty more in the future. If you didn't like the video, just do that anyway and wipe away the tears, you #TeamLH drone. I'm churning out a fair bit of post-Monaco content this week, and it's all being received early by my patrons and channel members. If that sounds interesting to you, or you just want to further support me and the channel, then you can head over to the relevant links in this video's description. Now I'll be back very soon with another video, but until then, have a good one.